The Flash is an unlucky hero for the DCEU, and it's not just because of Ezra Miller. Many Flash movies have been shelved over the past 20 years or so, and today I'll tell you why, starting with some context on what's going on right now.
It's all right now.
I'll get into the entire list of all the failed Flash movies in just a bit, but for now, let's look at the first seemingly successful solo film for Barry Allen. And by successful, I mean that it's getting released. It most likely won't be received very well. Oh yes, I'm talking about Ezra Miller's Flash. Even this film has been through many significant delays, stemming from all kinds of issues from COVID-19 to controversies involving its lead star. While this may be the Flash's first outing as a solo star, it won't be Ezra's first appearance as the superhero. They were cast as Barry Allen almost 8 years ago in 2015. He's made many small cameo appearances in the DCEU, gracing movies like Batman vs Superman: Dawn of Justice and Justice League. His solo film was supposed to go out in March 2018. I know that seems like an eternity ago. So much has happened since. Many directors came and left the project. Multiple delays led to different versions of the story as well. Now, despite all the drama and rumors about this film being shelved yet again, official announcements reveal that The Flash will release in June of this year. It's directed by Andy Muschietti, and longtime fans are over the moon. After all, they've been waiting for so long. It's not that Warner Brothers or the DCEU hasn't tried making a Flash movie. They've been trying since 2004 with David S. Goyer's Flash movie. Yes, the classic David S. Goyer, the same one who's written some of the most iconic DC films ever seen, was in talks to write the first Flash movie some 19 years back.
Just gotta go faster than the speed of light, far beyond the speed of light. Gotta break the rule, Barry, and you gotta do it now.
If you don't know who he is, you shouldn't be calling yourselves DC fans. This man wrote for Blade, Batman, and Superman, and he could have written for The Flash too, if only. This writing opportunity came to Goyer just after he was done working on Batman Begins, directed by the brilliant Christopher Nolan. Yep, he wrote that Batman movie. Warner Brothers wanted him to continue working on newer DC films, and he wanted to do something with The Flash instead of Green Lantern. And he wasn't just going to write it, he was also producing and directing. You know what that means? Full creative control, baby. What more can you ask? And the project wasn't hushed or anything. David openly spoke about it in December 2004, calling Flash one of his favorites from the comics.
Whatever happens, I want you to know your kid was one of them, Dad.
Still, there wasn't any release date. He apparently finished his script in 2006, but there were still no updates. The only update fans got was in 2007, and it wasn't a happy one. Goyer announced that he was leaving the project. You know how I said he had full creative control? Well, not really. The writer said that his film couldn't work out because of disagreements with Warner Brothers. The studio had other plans for the character. They wanted to fit the Flash in the Justice League and potentially work on a standalone film after that. Unfortunately, even that couldn't work out. I'm talking about Justice League Mortal over here. This came right after David's The Flash got canceled. Development began on this new Justice League movie with George Miller as director in 2007. Now, this movie was intended as a standalone story without any links to Nolan's trilogy or Superman Returns. It was aiming for a release in 2009 or 2010. Spoiler alert, it wasn't released. But while it was in development, the studio was planning multiple spin-offs, and a Flash movie would have been one of them. Sean Levy was selected to direct it. Levy left to work on Night at the Museum, and David Dobkin entered the picture. But since this was supposed to be a spin-off, the movie was scrapped after Mortal's cancellation. If you've done your homework on Mortal, you'd know that it was based on the comics Justice League Tower of Babel. Barry Allen would have most likely died by the end if they had stayed true to the story. That means the spin-off wouldn't focus on Allen, but on Wally West as the new Flash. Now, I was of the view that after this, only the CW Flash show was left to follow, but I couldn't have been more wrong. I was right in one way. The movie that followed was supposed to be helmed by the creators of the TV show as well. That's right, Greg Berlanti and Mark Guggenheim were initially working on a movie. The movie would have seen Michael Green as the writer, and work began as early as 2010, 4 years before the CW show was released. Around that time, the same team was also working on Green Lantern, with Ryan Reynolds playing the lead character. This is an important detail, trust me. So do you all remember the insane success of the Dark Knight trilogy? Naturally, the studio had super high hopes for Green Lantern. They expected it to be DC's Iron Man, if you will. As everyone knows, that movie wasn't even nearly as successful. It was received horribly by audiences and critics, unlike any MCU movie. But here's what many of you don't know. Green Lantern was supposed to start an entire DC universe, much like the MCU, and the Flash movie would follow as well. They weren't premature like last time, so no director was ever announced, but they did have some idea in mind. The movie was to take from Jeff Johns' recent Flash comics, and those comics were terrific. I'm sure the movie would have been too. Unfortunately, Green Lantern's failure led to all these DC Universe movies being shelved and ultimately scrapped. Berlanti and Guggenheim eventually moved on to creating the Flash for the CW, and I'm so glad they did, because contrary to what Warner Brothers had in mind, people would not get a solo Flash movie for a long time. Of course, they would get more failed attempts at one, and the next one's a prime example, the Lord and Miller's movie. This came after Man of Steel and Batman vs Superman: Dawn of Justice. By then, DC had managed to kickstart what you now know as the DCEU, a shared universe for all characters. All solo films from here on would have to be in line with Zack Snyder's movies, leading up to the Grand Justice League. Enter Ezra as the Flash. Lord and Miller were brought in to write the new movie, and Seth Grahame-Smith was hired as the director. The film was expected to come out just a few months after Justice League, but in 2016, Seth exited the set, citing creative differences as his main reasons.
Slowpoke?
Oh, it's on.
After his departure, the studio began looking for a new director, and they found the perfect one in Rick Famuyiwa, known for his movie Dope. There's very little info on Rick's version for The Flash, but I can tell you that he was working on a newer version of the script, and he was going to see this project till the end. The filmmaker was there at the San Diego Comic-Con 2016, sitting on the director's panel, along with Snyder, Ben Affleck, Patty Jenkins, and others. This motivation was short-lived though, and only 4 months later, Rick announced his departure. The reason? Same as Seth's. And so eventually the baton was passed on to John Francis Daly and Jonathan Goldstein. But the story remained the same. More creative differences hindered the production process, only this time they were between the directors and Ezra. Miller had such power that they got Grant Morrison to pen a new script. These two also left the project, which is now directed by Muschietti, and by the end, Morrison had left too. Well, that's all the canceled Flash movies. See you in the next video.